and welcome to another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by generalsjoes.com, with me as your host, Chris Manazon McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. I don't know what that means, really. Joining me today to discuss the recent closing of Amazon's Kindle Worlds program is Justin General's Balls Bell. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. Earlier today, we got some quite disappointing news regarding Amazon's Kindle Worlds program. An email was sent to owners a few days ago and to authors involved the following day, outlining information about the closure of Kindle Worlds. The news came as quite a shock to most, and as yet we don't know officially why the decision was made. I mean, Justin, being an author, you got this email today, I believe, right?
Yes, I did get it today. Yeah.
How we're recording this as of now, it's Wednesday evening. I mean, how did that? Obviously, it was probably a bit of a kick to the nuts, but I mean, you've kind of transitioned a little bit away from Kindle Worlds as a format. You're more self-publishing in a different direction now, but that still must have been quite a kick to the nuts to you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't so much a kick to the financial nuts. I mean, I'm not making a whole lot of money on Kindle Worlds right now, but it was essentially without Kindle Worlds, I wouldn't be writing right now. I mean, the first, actual publishing I did was G.I. Joe, novels through the Kindle Worlds program, and that's where I kind of got the fever to do this writing gig and to start publishing. So if not for that Kindle Worlds opportunity writing for G.I. Joe, none of the rest of this would have ever happened, and my life would be completely different now than it is at the moment. So. And I'm not like a superstar or anything, but I'm managed to kind of cultivate this into not necessarily an especially lucrative career, but I've got a good collaboration going. I'm selling some books, I'm making some money, and doing some pretty interesting and pretty cool things. So I feel like I owe the folks at Hasbro, G.I. Joe, and Amazon a great debt for having that Kindle Worlds program open, and it's really a shame, and it does kind of make me sad to see it fading away, because how many other potential authors that might have gotten their start writing for a Kindle World property now won't get that opportunity, may not find themselves where I am now, it's disappointing. I mean, it's kind of a prevailing thought throughout the independent author community, the kind of power that Amazon has in the whole book publishing environment, and Amazon giveth and Amazon taketh away. Yeah. And really they do. They can change a policy with a snap of their fingers, and it can have sometimes devastating effects on some folks. Thankfully, it's not going to dramatically affect my income or anything like that, but there are people out there that are developing long-running series through Kindle Worlds that are now kind of scrambling to figure out what they're going to do about that.
Do you find it's quite a shock that it's come out of nowhere? There's been very little opportunity to react. Literally, the email was sent to owners like the day before, yesterday, which would have been Tuesday. And then the authors were getting them today. The news kind of broke online a little bit, kind of leaked a little bit early this morning. Yeah. Now, we kind of, I saw, I think, Troy Osgood, I'll shout out Troy, he posted it in one of the groups, Tales of G.I. Joe. And again, that's kind of up there based solely on Kindle Worlds. People were all really excited to be able to get their kind of, the work, they kind of maybe worked on these books for a long time previously, or they came up with the ideas, when Kindle Worlds was activated, and was like initially was it was a bit of a buzz around it, and the fact that you had, obviously Stiletto, the fan vote, or let's say we had the fan vote that eventually we got the Stiletto figure from, and almost like we were kind of hoping for maybe a few more things like that, a few more figures to kind of creep through. But unfortunately, I mean, G.I. Joe was a big element of Amazon's Kindle Worlds, possibly the biggest part of it, would you say?
I've heard, I haven't, ever heard any exact numbers or anything like that, but, frequently when talking with Hasbro and folks about Kindle Worlds, G.I. Joe was often talked about as one of the best-selling branches of the whole Kindle Worlds program.
So do you think not having the media presence, the toy presence, etc. at the moment, do you think that's had any effect on the decision to kind of like to stop Kindle Worlds as the thing? I mean, it feels like this is coming from Amazon, but it could be anything really, couldn't it?
Yeah, I suppose that anything is possible. I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, looking at royalty payments over the years, they're lower now for the Kindle World stuff than they've ever been in the past. From a GI Joe perspective. So certainly, if they are seeing a dramatic downturn in revenue from the program, I would imagine Amazon's got to pay some kind of money to get access to those licenses and to those IPs. So you would think if they're not seeing a return on that investment, that would drive them to take a step like this. But, you're right, as far as it coming out of nowhere. I mean, literally the email that I got today, which is May 16th, said as of May 17th, Kindle Worlds will no longer be accepting new submissions. I mean, it's like, here's your notification. As of tomorrow, you're out of luck. It came from out of nowhere. Now, on the plus side, there's at this point, Kindle Worlds has, a couple dozen different universes people can play in. And some of those are actually, properties that belong to other independent authors out there. A guy named Russell Blake runs the Jet kind of Kindle Worlds program where people can write about his female assassin character named Jet.
Yeah.
And people like that, I mean, the rights for the books themselves are reverting back to the authors. So if they chose to, they could rewrite them, remove any kind of identifying marks of the IP and re-release them if they truly wanted to. But some of those other Kindle Worlds owners are, seem to be possibly taking steps where they may arrange for a different way for this whole thing to work. I don't believe Hasbro certainly hasn't announced anything like that, and I wouldn't really expect them to. They were kind of a little bit of an anomaly in the Kindle Worlds universe. They were kind of the only kind of big billion-dollar corporation with licensed property like G.I. Joe involved in it.
Yeah.
So they were kind of unique. So it'd be tough to envision them, making some kind of exception for this very small subset of creatives who are interested in writing for their property. But time will tell. We'll kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to say that about Hasbro. Maybe setting something else up for the G.I. Joe fandom to kind of get their teeth into, because at the moment we're just running out of things, in like the G.I. Joe universe.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end of comic runs with the IDW runs and stuff like that.
It's pretty unbelievable. I mean, you think that, you as a G.I. Joe fan, you're pointing out that, oh, yeah, there's no movie. Okay. Well, oh, yeah, there's no cartoon. Okay. Oh, well, now there's no retail line. Oh, well, now the Collectors Club's going away. There's not going to be any FSS or any convention figures. Oh, but we still have this little tiny morsel to hold. Oh, no, we don't have that anymore. The comics are now gone. Oh, well, we still have this Kindle Worlds. Oh, no, now that's gone. So, I mean, it's like they're scrubbing G.I. Joe from existence almost, with all these little tiny nuggets that the fandom still has to cling on to are essentially being taken away. And whether that's a Hasbro action. I mean, in this case, I don't think we can really blame Hasbro, because there are a ton of Kindle Worlds programs out there, and I highly doubt Amazon would shelve the whole program just because of one property. So I would say this is much more of an Amazon decision than a Hasbro one. But still, it still impacts the G.I. Joe fandom. And as we're leading up to, a movie that will hopefully reinvigorate the brand, there's getting less and less elements out there to kind of keep that faith and keep that candle lit in the meantime.
It does feel like they're clearing the table a little bit. It does feel like there's and again, like, it's probably to be expected. It's probably something that we should have really foreseen. I don't blame anybody. I mean, I don't blame Hasbro, like you say. I'm not kind of going, oh, Hasbro. Right. I don't do that anyway. But the fact that we don't have anything really to get our teeth in. Oh, okay. I'm not giving enough props here to say the current A Real American Hero run by Larry Hama, because obviously that's still going.
Don't jinx it, though, right?
Oh God.
First one to say anything about my being bad luck gets a knuckle massage.
Don't helix it. But no, I think, there's just so many different things that seem to be kind of running to an end, and there's you don't really see anything taking over. I mean, in the past, when, say, Rise of Cobra finished, it ran straight into Pursuit of Cobra. Pursuit of Cobra ran straight into the 30th, and the 30th ran straight into, and so on and so forth, Renegades, and then you get some other, and then you get the 50th. So you're getting like this. There's always something that it's rolling into. There might be a couple of months, there might be 6 months, it might be a year, but for the most part, there was always something tying like connective tissue between it all, running through it.
Yep.
The comics are always going.
That's something that a lot of today's collectors and today's fans kind of take for granted, because I mean there was a period of time I was actively collecting in 1994 when G.I. Joe effectively ended.
Yeah.
And there was Extreme and there was Sergeant Savage or whatever, but it really wasn't the same thing. And there was actually a period of 3 years where there was no comic, there was no toy line, there was really nothing for 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. And if you look back, ever since, it kind of made its triumphant return in the year 2000, that was 18 years ago. And there has not been a period of time since then when there wasn't something G.I. Joe active and going. I mean, the Collectors Club's been going since 2002. So no matter what else was going on in retail, the Collectors Club had something every year since 2002 for 16 years. So even if retail had, gone away, even if Sigma 6 had taken over. So, Real American Hero was essentially, not in public consciousness. During those years, the Collectors Club was still doing their thing. So there was still something there.
Yeah.
So we're running into a point where there literally will not be G.I. Joe product available, new G.I. Joe product available anywhere. And it's kind of going to be a wake-up call for some folks who maybe weren't around in the mid-'90s and experienced that firsthand. And back then, we didn't really have the internet widely available. So, we couldn't just, dial up eBay and buy vintage stuff or dial up YouTube and watch old cartoons. If you didn't have it at your local department store, you were SOL. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the fandom reacts to this period, this quote unquote dark period where there will not be any product or any real media aside from the IDW Real American Hero comic up until we get to the movie.
I thought you were going to say up until it gets cancelled tomorrow. But
yeah.
I totally agree with all you said there. I have to kind of keep in my mind that just because something does come to an apparent end doesn't mean you're never going to see it again. And I think G.I. Joe is the kind of brand that does... it comes out in certain time periods, doesn't it? Like it'll pop up and all of a sudden it'll be massive again. The 25th was a huge era for it. I mean, that was, absolutely. I mean, that time away a little bit where it wasn't the original, that time away from the original run was probably a good time enough to then go, okay, well, obviously there's a lot of technology changes, a lot of action figure technology changes. I still feel like there's more development to be had in that field. I think there's been a little bit of regression as opposed to progression in a lot of the ways kind of figures are done. Again, I'm not having a go at big companies or anything.
Right.
It is what it is. Like if you're not selling something for whatever reason, it doesn't matter how good the figure is. I just got off with a call with Pat Stewart. We've just been talking about Starcom for 2 hours. Starcom was a wonderful, wonderful toy line, but it didn't take off in the United States. So I think that given the time away from it, I think this is an issue. Everyone's so like expectant to so like they need something there. And you put this obsession into G.I. Joe, and and a lot of commitment goes into writing a book for even like just like a short story. The amount of effort and commitment that takes, the time, especially if it's not your main gig, if you're doing it like on the side, which a lot of these guys are, like you were, and you to a degree still are. So like that is not an easy commitment to just drop and say, well, nothing about, I'll wait for a couple of years until it comes back. It's not like you can really do that.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I do give G.I. Joe credit for and Hasbro credit for is that when a Real American Hero has taken a break, typically upon their return, they manage to regain momentum and get stronger than ever. I mean, we had that gap up until 2000/2002. And while people don't necessarily like, the G.I. Joe versus Cobra New Sculpt era, you couldn't deny its popularity at the time. I mean, it was popular enough to go on for 4 years, to release hundreds and hundreds of figures, 3 different cartoon series. I mean, there was some popularity there during those years. And then, it kind of went away in 2005 and we got the Sigma 6 for a few years. And then when Real American Hero came back with the 25th anniversary, it had kind of reinvented itself from a construction standpoint and from a mindset standpoint, and it exploded again and kind of reinvented itself again. And time will tell what will happen after this dip, but there's a good track record at least. So who knows? I mean, maybe it'll come back bigger and stronger and better than ever.
I think people forget though about these things. I'm not necessarily worried that we're never going to see G.I. Joe again. I'm just impatient. I think that's
Sure.
the main issue. It's like this impatience because you know how good it could be, or you know how good it has been in like the Pursuit of Cobra, the 30th, the Renegades kind of years. I mean, in terms of the toys specifically,
Sure.
you know how good it's been in like the 80s and even the 90s, and I mean, you know, they were again like how successful it's been in multiple iterations. And even though you don't maybe have, like you said, the 2000s kind of run in, you don't hold it in a high regard. It, like you say, it was massively successful enough for them to keep churning stuff out. That company would not keep making series of figures if they weren't selling. I'm sorry, they just wouldn't, because they would just crumble. So
exactly.
So I totally am down with that, and we will get something back. But in terms of the Kindle Worlds thing, it just feels like it's another element that they're just wiping clear. I mean, they're still licensing out to a lot of companies. We've had Shades recently from Knockaround. We've had new kind of vinyl figures from Whatnot Toys. We've had a number of different licensees take up the license for things like 12-inch figures, like Bait 1000 Toys, which seems to happen, you know, every year. We still, I'm pretty sure we're still going to be getting convention exclusives. I believe that's probably the only thing we're going to be getting, as in SDCC, NYCC, etc. And then, you know, obviously we're losing out on the club, which is a big resource for a lot of figures. Yeah. But we're still going to get another FSS squeezed in. We're going to get a couple more, you know, exclusives at JoeCon. I still feel like, even though it is being like, you know, a lot of the main areas are being wiped out, I still feel like there is something there, and we will get something back soon. And let's face it, they're building up for a film. We just have to be patient. That film is slated, it is dated, it is in development. Multiple films of in its related categories, like the combined universe. They're all being worked on. They're not going to pump that amount of money in and then just back out. Like this, it will happen in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what you've got to keep in mind, and you've also got to realize that sometimes some time away, like you said, is helpful. I mean, sometimes you need that.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and you look at the power of film. You know, you look at a toy line like Transformers, which was, you know, kind of lingering along a little bit, you know, leading up to the big Michael Bay blockbuster. I mean, they had some Robots in Disguise and, you know, the Cybertron trilogy, which a lot of people like, but I kind of equate that to the New Sculpt era, sort of. You know, they're pretty cool with some nice vintage homages, but maybe not as mature from a toy design and production perspective.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you had super successful films, and it, you know, catapulted into Transformers Classics and the Prime Wars trilogy, which has been absolutely spectacular.
Generations, masterpiece, like everything that comes along with that. Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, things can change at the drop of a hat. Now, does G.I. Joe have the capacity to do that? I'd like to say that they do, but I believe they probably have to reinvent themselves in order to do it. I mean, Transformers can be considered a little bit more timeless, I think, just by the nature of what they are, big transforming robots.
Yeah.
Whereas G.I. Joe, I think, would have to kind of take a hard look at itself and see, you know, how it might reinvent itself for this new generation. But kind of tying that back to Kindle Worlds, it's another reason for, you know, the G.I. Joe fandom to be a little disappointed and a little upset at kind of the lack of what they perceive as support from Hasbro for the G.I. Joe line. But I think it all kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, Hasbro's got to make their money, and unfortunately, you know, at this point, they're trying to figure out how to best do that. G.I. Joe is still an in-house property for them, so it's still a priority. You know, they're still going to find ways to support it, but it's just going to be something, like you said, we have to just be patient.
And I think on that bombshell, on that bomb bell, we'll call it a day. But thank you for jumping on, Justin, for that one, to have a chat. Again, kind of commiserations. I feel really bad for a lot of the guys that are on there, because obviously, you know, we're quite close with a lot of the Kindle Worlds authors.
Definitely.
You know, big shout out to Troy Osgood, to
Bill Nedrow,
Jim Beard,
John Simcoe. A bunch of those guys, Wes Ferguson. There's a bunch of those guys.
Justin Bell.
Not that guy.
No, that guy's no. Yeah. So obviously, you know, shout out to you guys. Keep making it. Keep making that stuff. Put it out in any way you can. Obviously,
and anybody, if you want to buy it, now's your shot, because as of July 16th, Amazon's going to be taking them down. So if you think you might want to buy a Kindle Worlds, book to check out, you better get moving on it. So, because as of 16th, you want to have that opportunity.
Get on Kindle Worlds, go on G.I. Joe, and just get everything.
Buy it all.
Support them. Get them
Start with mine
supported.
first.
And I would, but you gave me all yours for free. I'm just kidding. That's it for this installment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host Justin. See you next time. And as always, let's not get too depressed. Full force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of these platforms with feedback, questions or to say, who do you think you are? A serious operation now? No, not even close. Look out for more of these news bursts that we are posting on the Facebook page from now on. Full Force.